So we are starting today with the co-creator blast number 12 on Beyond Teaming, and I just need to invite Elizabeth. So let me see if I find Elizabeth again. Zack, no. Hello. So I see some people joining us. Yes, I see you. Yes. So you're waving and I'm waiting. So yes, good.
Exactly. So Liz is joining us.
Yeah, let me put the sound a bit louder, and I'm trying to put my phone somehow. Yes, it seems to work.
I completely understand. I had a very similar situation.
So we say that today we would be talking about beyond teaming,
Yeah.
and what it means to be a team, and what we want to add to the normal definition of what is a team of, having people working together. That's not it. It's more than that.
Yeah.
And so we thought, I'm trying to fix the light, just trying. And so we always start with a song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We are the champions, my friends.
That's the song. And we thought we would change the lyrics a bit, because at some point they sing about we will fight until the end, and we said no, we will co-create until the end.
Yeah.
So that's our song version, the co-creator song.
Exactly. We are the co-creators, my friends.
Yes. Oh yes, I love it. I love it. We are the co-creators. So let me try to invite some more people, because it's lunch, so there are people waiting for us.
Yeah.
But they don't know it yet.
But they don't know it yet. So, well, then I will take, while you're being a good girl and finding some more participants. What we wanted to talk about today about, why is it beyond teaming? Quite often, when everyone uses the term team, like, oh, you're a team player, here you'll be working in a team. But then when you ask people about their experience working in teams, they're oftentimes complaining like, oh, team conflict resolution. It's funny, if you Google teams, that's one of the first things that comes up is team conflict. And one of the challenges that we see here is there's a big difference between groups that just coordinate work packages, where I do my part, you do your part, and then right before we present, we'll come together. Sound familiar to anybody who's done a common project either at work or at school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where, as opposed to a team, and a team is that piece around how do I tap into your expertise, my expertise, and that together we're able to create something that neither one of us would have been able to do alone. And yeah, it's one of the things about teaming. There's a really good quote that I was looking up. It's like, it's from Julian Smith, who was also is a famous kind of guru advisor to managers. And one thing that he said, which I thought was really good, there will always be someone smarter than you. There will be always someone faster than you. There will always be someone stronger than you. That means your only real job is to be the best at connecting with other people. Mm-hmm. And as we look to working remotely, being connected, as we look to challenging, the skills of the future, one of the very first ones is collaboration. And how are you actually able to work with people? And how are you able to build on others' ideas and really get into that fun flow of what it means to be a real team, rather than just individuals coordinating work packages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really important to remember this idea of collaboration and coming together. And what it means for me, it's to be open to the idea of someone else, without rejecting it when it's not exactly the same thing as I think. So this plurality of thoughts and diversity comes into play too.
Absolutely. And there's also a famous quote from Stephen Covey where he says, if there are three people in the room and they're all of the same opinion, at least two are superfluous or something along those lines. And what does he mean to say by that? Thoughts on Cecile? What does he say when, you know, we're all of the same opinion, then two people are superfluous?
It's, when you say that, it reminded me of a cartoon that I saw, I think on Twitter last week. And the manager says, I want new ideas, and they are only meaning him, you know, like they're all the same guy. And you're like, yes, well, if you have the same thought, like if everyone has the same way of thinking, then you don't come up with creative ideas. And so you can't really create something new, because you can't create something new with something old or something already existing. That's what I see when we think about diversity and the idea of opening up to other ways of thinking and of seeing the world. Because when we come in teams, there is this tendency to, you know, when you're forming, you're trying to see, okay, who's my friend, who's not, and then there is this idea that we have to find consensus. That's English.
Consensus. That's a tongue twister for you.
Oh yes, today. And so the idea that we have to have the same idea, otherwise there is a conflict, and we have such a bad opinion about conflict. We don't see it as a way of constructing something together. We see it as destruction. Like conflict is always linked with destruction, which is not the case when you have the capacity to be open enough to accept that other opinions exist and they don't invalidate your opinion.
Precisely.
All reality can exist at the same time.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I always, you know, when I'm talking to clients, I always like to say conflict is good because it means at least the people care. So, you know, at a bare minimum, people are invested and they want things to improve. And quite often it's like you said, you know, we're quite often looking at how do we have harmony? How do we just get this done so that I can move on? Quick. And the thing about friction, the thing about conflict is that it is more strenuous. I mean, full face value, it's a lot easier. Things go a lot quicker if everybody is those three people with the exact same opinion. But the challenge is when we're trying to solve difficult problems, when we're trying to solve problems that we haven't been confronted with before, where we need to tap into different expertise, where we try and take off. And this is where, you know, what I like to say is like, oftentimes we have these professional blindfolds, like a horse, you know, where you're just like going this way because, oh, this is how work psychologists think. This is how change management thinks. This is what project management is. This is what agile is. And we forget that there's frameworks of thinking that are helpful, but unless we have that willingness to say, maybe there's a different way, and how do we invite different voices in towards a common problem, that's where it's that element of how we can really team. And so it is more strenuous. Sorry, full face value.
Yeah, but I think when we want to create something of value, creating is you know, it's not easy. Like creation you need more energy. Like for me, it seems totally logical that when you have those conflicts, you create this friction, and that through it, if you know how to channel this energy and to use it in a constructive way, that you will create something new. And I think that's the most difficult part for people, is to understand that you can have different opinions, but it's exactly what we need to create the solution. And for example, when I speak about change management, I usually say, be careful to find the reason why there is a problem, like the real deep reason why. Because as long as you don't understand where it comes from, like the root of the problem, you can be working on thousands of things, but you're solving symptoms, but not the root of the problem. And when we are in teams, it's always interesting to look at why is there this friction, Is it a value that we don't agree on? Is it a principle that we think that should not be lived the same way? What is it about? And then to have like an open discussion about what is the pain, the pain that we are feeling, this difficulty that we face.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, here back to your point around, here, what is the symptom? The other piece I would just add on to it is don't assume you know what the problem is.
You never know.
So one thing that we oftentimes talk about is onboarding, and everyone's like, HR complains I'm not getting integrated and I'm not getting onboarded. HR, well, why didn't these discussions happen? The manager doesn't follow up. So the assumption is quite often the process or the tool. There must be something wrong with the tool, rather than saying, okay, is there something wrong with the behaviors that are needed in order to support a good onboarding? And this is the teaming. And this goes back to what Anne-Cécile was saying about the beginning, is how do we create harmony and non-conflict? When I'm asking during the onboarding, I'm going into that space of I don't know. Do I like to be taught? Many people hate it. When I'm in, teaching 7 habits, everyone's like, I want to get out of the dependence area, like immediately. And if you're in the learning area, you have to be, you have to be good in that area of dependence, because that's part of learning. And people who are in dependence can actually really create some great questions where we question things. This questioning things about why do you do that, that can be either perceived as a threat or an irritant because it slows things down. Or it can be like Anne-Cécile said, are we just putting band-aids on things but not addressing the real core problem or the issue, for example, with onboarding? And so as we look to beyond teaming, and this is why we're taking it as part of co-creation and co-creator space. So one of the pieces is our tag is adapting and thriving for adaptive solutions. And the reason why it's adaptive is there's not one best way. Not everything is going to be scalable. And so to understand who is the closest to the problem, who can actually give insights here. It's not in a centralized department millions away from the problem, but the likelihood that the person, the operator, the person dealing with that customer issue has some good insight as to how to solve that problem. That's why we talk about co-creation. Co-creation is not about being far away from the problem and looking at the data sets and saying, okay, I think this is what it could be, and then assuming and taking time, but it's saying, how do we get that mix of voices? Who's affected by this problem? Who's affected by this challenge? What does the user actually need? What would actually help him or her? Rather than just looking at the customer, which the customer is oftentimes looking at what's irritating me, or I want to get this thing quick so I can move on. If you take the viewpoint for teams and say, okay, what does the user need? Then you ask the question, who could really bring a good voice to this problem? It's called the Oracle method. So, if we take Instagram Live, who could be some people who could have some expertise in dealing with how to make an Instagram Live video? And Cécile, some ideas?
Well, both of us, we are trying to make some lives and we're learning as we're doing it. And I guess any person who is also experiencing the Instagram Live on the other side, because we have one person following us right now. So hello.
Hello.
And we have the possibility to interact with the comments, but most of the time it's a bit delayed. So we see the question and we already changed subject. So that would be, for example, a potential for improvement, but it may also be linked to our internet. So
Okay. So looking at how can we improve kind of the experience or the overall experience of going through a customer through Instagram Live. So absolutely right. Saying, okay, let's take someone who is experiencing us as the audience. What are they looking for? What would be important to them? We could take, here, what are we working to get out of it? Why do we want to do an Instagram? So why? So looking at the whys. How do, here, who could give us a good information and insight? Someone who has done Instagram lives before. And then there could be someone completely different, completely outside to say, okay, here, this is our engineer. To say, okay, how do you add structure? What is that different? What is that different approach as to what you could do? Because these different ideas, they help create, to say, understand, what are we wanting to get out of this? What does good look like? And how do we help create an experience and create an Instagram live where we learn, where we glean from expertise, where do we crowdsource, what do people want to get out of it? And then look at perhaps that second level, what's the effect that we want to have? Because actually it's not about the tool or the instance. It's not about the how of doing an Instagram live. It's about the need that's actually behind it. And so as we look to extreme teams, it's not only, it's really about, why do we exist? Why do we exist as a team? What are we trying to accomplish? And is there team clarity as to what is the value of this team? Why do I want to be on it? What are the pieces that I'm going to learn? How will I grow? How will we have impact? What are those relationships that I can have? How, do we understand what the customer impact is? Why was this team put into existence by management? Oftentimes this isn't just, someone usually does give some thought. Maybe, okay, we'll put it that times it's not, but there usually is a thought process as to what's the impact we're wanting to have. We need a unique set of people coming together to work to solve a particular problem or to address something. So getting this clarity around, why do we exist? What are the different players on the team? How are they contributing? What do they want to contribute? And what does good look like? Not in terms of the tools and processes, but in terms of those overarching aspects. And for me, or for us, this is also a big piece of what differentiates a high performing, functioning, and adaptive team, is one that's able to do that well and not just coordinate their work packages. Okay. Yeah. So this is that aspect as we look to what are highly successful teams. And what is that fun that goes into them? So we talk a little bit about flow of work. So if I were to say, ask you guys and us and Cecile, what is a highly, if you think of like the best team feeling of how awesome it is to be on a team, what are those examples that come into your head?
Oh yeah, that's a good. I would talk about our co-creation times.
Yeah.
When we come up together, when it's possible. I do remember the first times we met when we created the framework, and we could spend 5-6 hours together. And I was like, oh, it's already done. I could stay, I could sleep here if you want. These kind of feelings. And also a time when I was studying, we had a study case, and we basically slept and worked together. In our beds separately. No misunderstanding.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm so innocent. I'm like,
yeah, totally. But we spent a few days together solving this problem and deciding really at the end who would write what. But all the reflection, most of the reflection was made as a group, and then the deepening was shared. Like someone was better at writing, so this person we decided that she would write most of the things because she was fast and good, and I was the crazy one and creative, so I was really active at the beginning and getting people to work together, but it was a very good experience. And I had other experiences, but it's this feeling of flow and of letting things go and work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and feeling that trust within the team that you can have a different opinion, that you can be, different in terms of your crazy helps our crazy in a positive way. And so examples of good co-creation and good teamwork, and Cecile mentioned it, was like a scavenger hunt What happens in a scavenger hunt? You have, you know, you have tasks, you know where you want to go, you have a common goal, you work together, you have combined thinking, and you're able to resolve it together. So, and this is, scavenger hunt is a great example of how that plurality and how that diversity of teams really can make a difference. Because could one person solve a scavenger hunt? Oftentimes, yeah. Of course, would just take them probably a lot longer. And they would have to do different things. And so it's that piece around how do you socially competent, you know, use social competence to be able to really work together as a team. And I like to, and this is totally aging me. There was this movie, and okay, so I was like insanely young. I was probably embryo stage, but there was this movie called Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, and what it was is it was a car race through the U.S. and it's a comedy anyway. But it was that piece of very different, varied characters, common goal. There's hiccups that happen. How do they get through it? And it's that flow and that fun of work. So as we look to beyond teaming, we look to things like Amy Edmondson, who talks about extreme teaming. That's part of the basis of the module. We look to different examples for fostering brave space, like Nike does, in terms of it's not only how are we having an inclusive environment in terms of having different types of people, but how are we inviting different plurality of thought? How are we making sure that people have a comfortable space where they can voice a different opinion? And how are we helping, like in Amazon on their innovation processes, how are we looking to remove barriers? So here quite often this piece of how are we working within the system? People are working to maintain their job. And that is really hindering experiments. So how do you create safety in that? When I was working for a laser manufacturer here near Stuttgart, there was a lean process. And we put up the principles of, if you work in this, you will not lose your job. You know, here it's about how do we create our processes, what we do more effective. And so work is going to be realigned, absolutely, because if we find a better way, we'll find a better way. But you're not going to lose your job out of it. And you have to, and you are allotted 10% of your week to work on these things. And so creating those frameworks, setting those pillars in the ground for a team and giving that allowance and permission, but also creating that space so that a team can actually form as a team, that's huge. And that really makes the difference to people who are just coordinating work packages, because when you're coordinating work packages, you don't actually often ask, why are we doing this? What are we hoping to get out of this?
And I think that's the biggest problem I see and I saw in many organizations. It's this silo thinking, me, you, separation. And if you didn't do your job, then that's not my problem. And you're like, well, but you're in it together. Like you're supposed to create something together. So at some point you have to go out of your box and create bridges.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And seeing that it's not always that there is this difficulty to go over this job description for some people. It's not in my job description. I'm not doing it. I'm like, well, that's the environment, you know, that's probably supporting them in this way of thinking, because it's not, there is no thought about beyond teaming in those organizations. You know, it's just, let's do what we have to do. And if it's done, it's good. If it's not, we are going to start to ask ourselves questions. But until there is a big problem, nothing is done about those silo thinking.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, and we're coming to a close, but I think that is really where you have to drill in deeper, and you're absolutely right. If someone comes to you with a job description and saying this is not part of my job, then it's either fear-based, I don't understand what's being asked of me, I don't trust in what we're doing, and I have conflict, so I'm bringing up this safety of a job description rather than saying, I'm uncomfortable, I don't know what's expected of me, I don't feel comfortable in this group in terms of how are we working together, and I don't understand what we need to be doing together. So taking those signs, which are oftentimes defense mechanisms to protect oneself in a team environment, you're absolutely right. That's when you, as a leader, but also as a colleague, have to drill in deeper and understand, you know, if we're really trying to do this together, how can we do it together?
Yeah.
And so that's what we just kind of want to leave you together today with, is really understanding there's a huge difference between coordinating work packages and really going to this space of beyond teaming, where you're looking at how are we breaking down professional culture clashes and barriers? How are we giving into a willingness that there can be a different way, and that the plurality, and that the different insights, I won't say necessarily opinions, because there's opinions, absolutely, there's facts, there's data, etc., but there's exploratory learning that happens within a team, and that's when you get the magic. And the magic for innovation, the magic for adaptive solution comes in when you really look at how is this group teaming, and giving them time to form that foundation so that they can actually get there.
Exactly. I think that was so well said and summed up.
I love it. Well, and so we're excited. So again, if you have any questions about Co-Creator Space, I am Elizabeth Lemke.
And I am Anne-Cécile Graber.
Yes, and we are here for you. This is a passion project of ours, because we really are about how can we help foster self-agency? How can we help people within this wonderful, there is some wonderfulness that is going on right now in the world of work, in terms of how are we questioning things? Are they fit for purpose? Are they future ready? So we are here, and this is our passion. In terms of how are we teaming with you, how are we teaming with others to help within that space as we look to how do we co-create a better path forward. And you can find us
on LinkedIn, so the Co-Creator Space, on our website, www.co-creator.space or .space. I'm mixing the languages today. Instagram, and are we on Twitter? We are on Twitter too. So, you know, look for us. You'll find us.
You'll find us, and you'll also find us on LinkedIn.
Yes.
My goodness. So the only thing that you have to do today after this is listen to some Queen, and then get caught up on Co-Creator Space.
Yeah. And follow us and share it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it. It's helping us.
Like it. I like it like that. All right.
Great.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks, Anne-Cécile. Wonderful to have you be here together with you.
It's a pleasure every time, and see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.